What would you say if I told you that the emotional roller coaster that you experience every day isn't just a byproduct of life, but instead a pattern that you have unknowingly conditioned yourself to crave? Sounds like total bullshit, right? I watched a couple videos from some doctors that I admire, and it got me looking deeper into the subject. It sent me down a rabbit hole because it really piqued my interest. And I think what I found out might actually surprise you. Just like the title suggests, we are addicted to our emotions. And like I said, at first, I thought it was complete bullshit as well. So I started heading down a rabbit hole here lately because I wanted to find out what exactly is going on. By nature, I'm curious and I want to know. I want to know and understand how our minds work and why we do some of the things that we do. I've never been able to understand why some people are just habitually sad or angry or lonely. I want to better understand the psychology of our emotions. Here's my take on what's actually happening inside of our minds and inside of our bodies. This is my take on what I understand from the medical literature and the professionals. And I think it's pretty damn eye-opening. It is absolutely possible to be addicted to stress and sadness, loneliness, anxiety. All of the emotions that we experience as human beings, we can actually become addicted to them. And it's not because you actually want to feel the way that you feel. It's not because you want to feel sad. It's not because you want to feel that anxiety. But your brain has become chemically dependent on the hormones that are released when you feel these emotions and when things happen. The dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins, the adrenaline, the cortisol. We actually get addicted to these things. If we look at the example of stress, stress inherently is not a bad thing. Stress is actually a good thing that's designed for survival. Its purpose is to keep us alive. And our stress response is controlled by what's called the amygdala. Your amygdala is an almond-shaped structure inside of your brain that works as like a smoke alarm or a smoke detector. And its entire job is to keep you alive in a threatening situation. And back in the caveman days, back in the ancient times when we actually faced legitimate dangers and stress, like a saber-toothed tiger or something, it would save people's lives. Hello. Your amygdala activates a flood of hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. And those two hormones give you the clarity and the strength for either fight or flee. But your amygdala, it's not designed to stay switched on all of the time. Like I said, it's more like a smoke detector. It should sit there and only activate when it needs to. Just imagine sitting inside your house with your smoke detector going off nonstop and you can't turn that thing off. But in today's world, that's exactly what we're doing. Is our amygdala never has the opportunity to shut off. So our smoke alarm is just constantly running. We're constantly seeing the bills pile up, the relationship stress, the emails, the deadlines that we find at work. Our brain is perceiving these as threats. And because of that, our amygdala is constantly pumping out hormones because it perceives these threats. Over time, we can legitimately become addicted to these hormones. I'm sure, as we all know, adrenaline junkies, right? It gives us that shot of energy. It gives us that momentary opportunity to where people can actually realize superhuman strength. But in all actuality, this can be extremely damaging for the long term. Over the long term, this can wear down your adrenal glands and lead to what's called adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue, this is when your body gets so overwhelmed with stress constantly that your body is unable to produce the hormones effectively. And the end result of that is you feel you lack energy, you feel burnt out, you feel like you're stuck in a loop. But stress isn't the only emotion that we can get addicted to. We can actually get addicted to sadness as well. I know at first glance it sounds stupid because nobody wants to feel sad. Who wants to feel sad? This isn't about choosing sadness. It's about the habits and the patterns that you have formed. Because just like stress, when you're sad, your brain will release these certain chemicals, these certain hormones. And what ends up happening over time is your brain will adapt to these feelings and eventually begin to crave it. It becomes a habit and a pattern that you have created. And when you create these habits and patterns, then it becomes easier for you to fall back into that sadness. But just in case you've never heard of it, that happens through what's called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity, that is how your brain rewires itself through repetitive habits, through repetitive actions. So if you're repeatedly feeling sad, then your brain will begin to associate sadness with familiarity, and the cycle will continue. This is also why some people seem to dwell in negativity. It's not just a mental pattern. It is a chemical dependency that will continuously reinforce itself. But it doesn't stop at sadness either, because lonely is another one that we can become addicted to. And I think this one might actually hit home for a lot of people. If we think about introverts, I am a natural introvert. I am an introvert, I should say. We feel comfortable either alone or in our comfort zone. We might even feel as if our comfort zone or the familiarity that we enjoy is our natural state. But then if we look at an extrovert, they can feel absolutely suffocated when they're by themselves. It all comes down to brain chemistry. When you're around other people, your brain will release chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine. Those are your feel-good hormones. And an extrovert, they're going to be more reliant on the release of those hormones. And that's exactly why isolation will feel just completely unbearable to an extrovert. But meanwhile, an introvert, they're going to feel better without that interaction with other people, because they've conditioned their minds to feel comfortable with the lack of those social situations. And truly, neither state is either good or bad. But when we get stuck in extreme situations like extreme loneliness or overdependence on social interactions, that's when it actually becomes a problem. What it all boils down to is these addictive patterns, they're not about the actual emotions themselves, the stress, the sadness, the loneliness. They're more about the hormones. It's more about the neurochemical rewards that get triggered from these emotions. Because when you actually experience one of those certain emotions, then your brain is going to trigger a certain response for that emotion specifically. And over time, your mind is going to create pathways that make those emotions feel comfortable and familiar. And when those pathways become more familiar and comfortable, then it makes it easier for you to fall into those emotions. Over time, your brain will start seeking those sensations, and that's going to create pathways that makes it easier for you to fall back into the same patterns. Here's an example. If you find yourself constantly falling into toxic relationships or self-sabotaging behavior or risky behavior, or maybe you're making risky decisions, you're not doing that because you want to suffer. You're doing that because your brain has learned to crave that hormonal dump that happens from the dopamine, the adrenaline, the cortisol, the endorphins. Just like how people get addicted to the gym. People can get addicted to going to the gym, and that's because their brain, their body will crave the endorphins that are released as soon as they start working out. Our minds will crave the experiences that those hormones will provide. But this is where self-awareness will actually become a critical thing. Recognizing that your brain is actually forming these neural pathways is the first step into correcting these issues. Even things like excitement and self-sabotage, like I mentioned earlier, adrenaline junkies. On the surface, it may seem like these aren't related, but they're actually deeply connected. When we engage in risky behavior, when we procrastinate till the last minute, or even unnecessary drama, our brains are actually chasing the thrill and the flow of that adrenaline. And that's exactly why you might feel or experience a rush of adrenaline when you're in this mad rush to complete a deadline, or why some people just don't ever seem like they don't ever seem like they want to stop arguing with somebody, because it's not the consequences. They actually enjoy, their brains have developed and learned to enjoy and crave that hormonal rush. The same principle also applies to fear. Going and sitting and watching horror movies or thrill seeking like the adrenaline junkies, or even some of us obsessing over the worst case scenario, that is going to trigger adrenaline. The fear that we experience can actually be addictive. And I know this sounds crazy. I said the same thing. Don't take my word for it. I encourage you to look this up and do some research, because this absolutely blew me away when I read it. And it's because your brain associates these situations with survival. In turn, what ends up happening is the release of cortisol and adrenaline. It can feel absolutely amazing. Even though you're absolutely terrified of something that could be simple, your body is craving that chemical. But there is some good news in this, and that's that our brains are extremely adaptable. We can create that neuroplasticity through our brains for anything that we want to repeat, any new habit or any bad habit that we want to create or get rid of. Because just as your mind has been able to create these pathways that you currently have, your mind is also capable of creating the new pathways that get rid of the old ones. But it does take effort, and it does take consistency. It takes repeating exercises over and over. But the thing is these exercises can actually be extremely simple. You can actually take some extremely simple steps to create these new pathways and get rid of the old ones. And it's not hard. You just have to want it. First thing that you can do is practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the most important tools that you have to interrupt this emotional addiction. And by observing your emotions without judgment, you're able to catch yourself falling into old patterns. Next time you feel stressed, and instead of acting impulsively, just stop and ask yourself, is this stress serving me? Because sometimes just simply recognizing the emotion is enough to disrupt it. Instead of seeing stress as an enemy, learn how to reframe it as being a challenge. There's been studies that show that people who use stress for a tool for growth experience less side effects, or less negative side effects. And all it really is just this small mental shift. And number 3, it's one that I talk about all the time, and that's practice gratitude. Because gratitude, it triggers your brain to release the dopamine and the serotonin, which are both feel-good chemicals. When you focus on the positive things in your life, you're actually creating new neural pathways that lead to a positive balance. Number 4 would be daily reflections. Just spend a few minutes each day reflecting on how you reacted in certain situations. Were you overly stressed because of some situation, or did you fall into sadness or frustration? And identifying those emotions every single day, like, it will better prepare you for how to react in the future. Because most of the stress that we encounter on a daily basis isn't something new, or it's not the last time that we will experience it. We are able to control our reactions to those situations. Something that I like to do is, most people absolutely hate their commute. It's stressful. They have to deal with other people that are zooming around them or whatever. For me, I enjoy my commute. It actually allows me an opportunity to be peaceful. Now, I don't have to sit in like LA rush hour traffic. I don't have any experiences like that. For me, it's wide open highways. But I have an hour commute each way to and from work. That's 2 hours every single day that I can either reflect on my day, or I can think of positive affirmations on how to start my day. I can think of the endless possibilities of things that are going to go right. All I do is set my cruise 5 miles an hour below the speed limit, and I stay in the right lane and let everybody else get pissed off and go speeding around me. If I'm in somebody's way, I get out of the way. And I do not have any stress on my commute. I actually kind of enjoy my commute. It is me time. It is my opportunity for me every day. The 5th thing you can do is build healthy habits. So healthy habits, I think that one kind of goes without saying, right? Eat right, exercise, get proper sleep, proper rest, because they're all physically amazing for breaking negative emotions or preventing negative emotions. Physical exercise by itself is absolutely incredible for regulating your stress hormones. And then to top that off, it also releases your endorphins, which are feel-good chemicals. Talk about a win-win. Number 6 would be positive visualizations or positive affirmations. Just like I was talking about in my commute, it gives you the opportunity to visualize yourself or think about yourself reacting calmly in a stressful situation. Maybe feeling content and breaking free from those negative emotions or those negative emotional patterns. Over time, your mind will begin to associate these imagined scenarios to reality, and that's going to make it easier to behave that way in real life. Number 7 is one that I talk about frequently as well, and that's build resilience. Ultimately, resilience is having the ability to bounce back from setbacks and not spiraling downward into negative emotions. And every time I talk about it, I also talk about how you can build it back up by exposure therapy, exposing yourself to those difficult situations intentionally. And all you have to do is start small, and eventually larger and larger challenges and situations will become much more manageable, because each success is going to make your ability to handle much larger challenges possible. Understanding that emotional addiction is not just about your mental health, it's about regaining control of your life. When you're able to realize that your emotions aren't just random, but they are deeply tied to your brain chemistry, you can begin to rewrite your script, and you don't have to live trapped in the same emotional cycle over and over. You can break free. You can rewire your mind and build a life that's not ruled by stress and sadness. You'll realize that choice is actually yours. So remember this: your emotions are powerful, but they're not your master. And you have the tools. You have the tools to take back control. Just start small and sit back and relax. Be patient and watch your life transform. If you made it this far, do me a favor and go down in the comments section and write that word emotions. Look into and understand the addiction that we have to our emotions and why that addiction to emotions exists. Understand if you are addicted to emotions. Understand what emotions you might be addicted to. And as soon as you realize that, just like a drug addict or an alcoholic, you can begin to fight it. But as long as you deny it, you're never going to understand, because you don't know it, since you haven't identified it. By leaving that one word comment, it shows me who's sticking with me. It lets me know who's in this with me and who's actually taking their life by the horns and taking life seriously. It also helps with the algorithm, because every single like, comment, and subscribe, that every single one of those interactions that the algorithm sees, it says that people are enjoying and finding value in this content. So the algorithm is more likely to push it out further to other people. I want to thank each and every one of you guys showing up. I want to thank you guys for those super thanks. You guys gave me a bunch of those yesterday, and I am absolutely grateful. Thank you so much. That's all I got for today, guys. I want to thank you for showing up. I hope you guys are showing up for yourselves, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Peace.